Call to order the Housing and Human Welfare Committee meeting. It is Monday, October the 14th at 5:34 p.m. We'll start with the roll call. Alderman Schandemeyer.
Present.
Alderman Huntley.
Here.
Thank you. Can I have approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item on the agenda, can someone approve the minutes from our September meeting?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is R4424, funding authorization for the Housing Authority. We have amendments, so let's first start with Alderman. Well, I mean, you all are familiar, so we don't really need to go through everything. Let's start with Alderman Savage's amendment. Do we have to have a motion to discuss or no? Is there a motion?
Not for discussion of amendments.
No? Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, the Savage amendment.
I see here.
Yeah.
My question in regards to the Savage amendment is then that would they have decided that the allocations from the finance department will be every 6 months, and if so, how much?
I don't know. Rules gave it a favorable recommendation due to belief that it would increase transparency. I personally had mixed feelings on it, voted for it for the sake of rules, but said I don't really know how I'd vote for this on final reader. Mm-hmm. I frankly just have mixed opinions on this overall, but I'm okay if we vote to give this a favorable, vote to give this an unfavorable, or take no stance on it.
Just quickly, can you ask the our Zoom members? I'm curious if Melissa or Chris. And then
Are they here now?
And then we can try to get through this.
I would, just while we're waiting on them, I think I would pretty much echo Alderman Schandemeyer's comments. I can see how there's benefit for transparency. I can also see how it feels like busy work for people who are trying to actually get stuff done. So I have mixed feelings.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really mind the amendment. I dislike for poor amendments, though, to make it out of our committee, because then, you know, once it's out of the committee, it's up to 5 other older people, and I would hate for something that we disagree with to pass. My question, Melissa, and thank you so much for joining us, Melissa or Chris. Thank you both, by the way, for joining us. Is this just going to be split up into 6-month allocations from the finance department, or what's the plan there?
I'm not aware of what the suggestion is as far as disbursements are concerned. I have not received any information with regards to that.
Director Jakubiak, if you could.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any of the details on that particular amendment, but the
Thank you, by the way.
Perhaps we lost Director.
coordination and documentation of performance, description of how the funds are being used. There's a lot of review and ongoing collaboration between my office, Planning and Zoning, and Melissa's office that is meant to address the issues of transparency and the like. So whether this committee supports the amendment or not, from my standpoint, is immaterial. I don't have an opinion about it either way, actually.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm tempted to ask you, Jody, because you're here. What's the process on, and obviously this has to do with the overall bill, not just the amendment before us.
Jody Dickinson, Finance Director. As I recall, the agreement, which is partially drafted. It's not final yet, so I can't comment on the final terms of it. The agreement had some details in it on how the program was going to transpire and how the monies were going to be handed out and what information was required back. And we missed the first couple sentences of Mr. Jakubiec's statement, but that may have been what he was saying, is that in that agreement, we've drafted some methodology, although I don't recall specifically what it is. And it's not finalized yet, so.
Thank you so much. All right, so let's get this amendment over, and then we'll just kind of keep going and see where we get at the end. Who wants to recommend it favorably? Because I don't.
We can give it an unfavorable, or we can do no recommendation. Chair's preference.
Does it matter, Kalen, on the, okay? Well, let's just leave Amendment 1 as it stands.
No action.
I wouldn't, again, my thing is, in not supporting is that I don't want to tie the funds to this, because this says that the staff will be reporting back to us in 6 months from when we pass this, which leads me to believe that the funds would be out soon, and then 6 months from the day that the funds are dispersed, then they'd be coming back to us, and if we believe is good, then they'd be getting more funds, which makes me think they'll get $250 up front and then $250 later, which I'm not opposed to also. Again, I'm just concerned for the timeline and repairs with Melissa's team. So let's move on to the next amendment, Amendment 2, which we have in physical form. The Arnett Amendment, which reads, be it further resolved by the Annapolis City Council that $500,000 allocated by the City Council from FY 2025 city budget for HACA apartment rehabilitation is a one-time emergency expense to help HACA address its current crisis and does not commit the city to any future funding. Again, an amendment that I have an issue with. The first being, is this correct in the wording, Director Dickinson, that it'll be allocated from FY 2025, even though the amendment was from FY 2024?
The funding was first authorized in '24, and it was set aside in a separate fund inside the Housing Trust Fund. So when we established the '25 budget, we reappropriated it, and it is appropriated this year. So when they do commit it, it will come out of the 2025 budget appropriations.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Any questions from the committee members?
So this is another thing Rules gave favorable recommendation on. I softly supported it. It just kind of clarifies a stance we've taken in the past when we've explored this position before. But, or maybe not the body as a whole, but just loose discussions at the past that we've had. But whether or not this committee takes action or wants to do a favorable or not, it's up to the body.
From a finance perspective, I think it's a good idea to just always be clear that we are not taking away any future authority that we might have to allocate the budget. This feels a little bit unnecessary to me, but I think I come down on softly supporting it.
I think the wording, again, in the last sentence is what throws me off. And just to be clear, this will be on the R4424 is going to be on tonight's agenda at the city council meeting. That's why we had the special meeting. So just for clarity for everyone. The last sentence, one-time emergency expense to help HACA address its current crisis and does not commit the city to any future funding. For what? For just this, or future funding in general to HACA? That's so vague, and I'm concerned about that just because we have the CNI coming up, and obviously the city plans to be a partner to HACA and that. And so I guess I'll make a favorable recommendation on this, and then hopefully there can be an amendment on the floor to just address the language at the end. Or do we want to address the language here?
I would just say, Mr. Chair, I think that while this language makes it clear that this resolution does not commit us to any future funding, it also does not absolve us of any other commitments that we have to future funding of HACA. So we're just saying, here, we're not saying that we are committed to additional funding. There could very well be, if the council had 2 months ago passed a resolution that says, hypothetically, we're committed to funding HACA at $1 million for the next 5 years, this would not change that.
I agree with Alderman Huntley's assessment of this.
So should it read?
Because it's tied to a specific resolution, the language is obviously, legally speaking, going to be tied to that resolution as a whole.
Should it read, I just think we should just add, it does not commit the city to any future funding for rental or we could say, does not commit the city to any future funding regarding HACA's rental rehabilitation program. Can we just add those 4 words for clarity?
Sure.
Or 5 or whatever?
I will motion that language addition, Mr. Chair.
Sure, I will second that.
Thank you. All in favor on the amendment to Amendment 2?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. Now, on a personal note, I still am interested, just before we get out of here, in the funding. Obviously hearing that the policy has to be corrected. Is the basis of this policy what Teresa Wellman had written before she had retired? I would ask that to the director, sorry.
Yeah. Not, if I understand your question right, I would probably say no, not really. This policy is directed to the public housing portfolio of HACA and not to individual private landlords. However, in the broader scheme of things, it's clearly devoted to rental housing and rehabbing housing units and bringing them up to standard. In the big picture, it's addressing.
Just quickly, I'm sorry. More specifically, when Teresa was crafting the policy, I believe that there had been a conversation with the county and best practice, even in previous use of rental rehabilitation in the city. They would identify a set list of vendors that, whomever the landlord or tenant that they would be entering in this negotiation with or agreement with could use. And so that way the remediation could be expedited. The houses could be fixed quicker. There's a set list of, agreed upon vendors, and you all can just move forward in that process. Is that just really trying to make myself comfortable tonight with pushing this forward and understanding that, HACA will get funding in an appropriate time frame?
Yeah, the funding would be made available as soon as the city council authorizes it, and checks can be drafted. The structure around this has been set up through practice over the past 6 months with my office working with HACA and the executive director's office. And as part of that approach, there'll be a project manager at HACA that will work closely with our inspections coordinator. The work that would be done in the units is specifically tied to remediating the issues that showed up during the inspection. So those units that have failed inspections will have a funding source to repair and fixing those units so that they can be licensed right away. And the practice has borne fruit already without the funding, but we've reached a point where funding, in fact, is needed moving forward. And so we've got the infrastructure, if you will, or the program in place, and we're working it, Alderman, and it's making progress. So I feel confident that the funds will be used in a way that's consistent with the goals of this program and will deliver licensed units and occupied units in the short term, very quickly, as soon as we get the funding going. And, I could certainly, the executive director is here too, and I think she would echo my thoughts on this.
Thank you so much, Director Jakubiak. I think, again,
Sure.
one of the very good things about, us having the opportunity, obviously, to go to Sweden and look at housing infrastructure and all the other things is that I got to know the director and understand that he really does have a passion, one, for the work that he does in planning and zoning, but also for affordable housing and housing in general. And the well-being of our community. That's something that we had a chance to bond over in several of the communities that we had a chance to visit. And so I know that he definitely means well by this. And I'll ask just really quickly one question to Vicky, one question to Melissa, and then we can close out here. City Manager, but if we pass it tonight, can we have at our regularly scheduled October meeting of the Housing and Human Welfare Committee, which will probably be virtual, can we do kind of recap of the policy? I feel like by that point, you all will have a better understanding of the draft. You maybe be comfortable presenting it to this committee. It'll at that point already be out of our hands, but it would just be helpful for us to kind of keep up to date on where everything stands.
Yeah, sorry, Vicki Buckland, Assistant City Manager. Certainly the agreement, if this committee would like simply a copy of the entire agreement once that's finalized, that we can definitely send that so you have that for reference. And if you are interested in updates at any of the next meetings, that's definitely your prerogative.
Awesome, thank you. And it doesn't have to, again, like I said, be in great detail. I just like to know that it's moving, kinda. So awesome. Any oh, I'm sorry. I did want to give Director Maddox an opportunity, just to speak on your thoughts and opinions on R4424 and offer maybe, any amendments if you find it appropriate to do so. I think, collaboration is best.
Well, thank you, Alderman Gay and Alderman Schandelmeyer and Huntley for considering this resolution to assist the Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis. Just to provide some background to you all who you may or may not know, the Housing Authority on a yearly basis administers several grant programs, including the CDBG grant program, which is allocated by the City of Annapolis. The Housing Authority is very familiar and experienced with managing grant funds and operates with full transparency with regards to reporting and the manner in which we allocate resources and disperse funds that are allocated to us through a grant, whether it's a federal grant, a state grant, or a city administered grant or a county grant. We've successfully administered an ARPA grant of $320,000 to assist us with capital improvement repairs. It was a rental assistance disbursement. We successfully managed almost $1.2 million grant from the state to help weatherize the Robinwood site project through their energy grant. On a yearly basis, we administer CDBG grant funds that are allocated by the city to HACA. So we're quite familiar with reporting requirements, and we are quite familiar with transparency requirements. which the highest requirements of all entities actually is HUD, that we operate with and report to on a monthly basis with regards to our operating subsidy and our capital fund program, which also has extensive reporting requirements. So I just wanted to provide you with that background. The funds that we get with regards to these particular issues with repairs that are needed right now will help our residents greatly. Expediency is the key. We do already have qualified contractors that are ready. Just for your understanding, in order to work on HACA properties, all contractors must be procured according to HUD procurement standards, which are pretty extensive. We already have qualified, vetted, properly solicited, and hired under our procurement policy, which is a HUD-approved policy, contractors to work on our sites. Our issue is the ability to pay them due to our rent, primarily our rent collection deficit, which hovers about over $888,000 as of 9/30. And so we do have contractors ready to work. We do have staff ready to work. We need only funds to be able to continue this endeavor, and we will gladly comply with whatever reporting requirements that the city has, because that is something that we are well familiar with.
Thank you so much, Director Maddox Evans. My colleague, Alderman Shannon, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions, one for you, Director Maddox Evans, and then one for Director Kubiak, or maybe for Director Dickinson, whoever it's relevant for. So with HACA's experience with the reporting regulations, et cetera, does the Savage Amendment requiring 6-month reporting deadlines, does that unnecessarily burden your staff, or is that just something you guys are so used to it's just an easy thing to do? Because that was an amendment that I had mixed feelings on. I voted for it in the sake of rules, but I was kind of hesitant on it. It kind of sorts out. I have you here right now. Really impacts my final vote tonight.
I think a 6-month reporting requirement is reasonable.
Okay.
I think we contemplated very well what should be reported with regards to the city in the plan that we created. I think if there are maybe even additional reporting requirements, or if they are more extensive than what they already are, I think that will be difficult. We'll do it because we have to, and we will be required to. But I think as they are laid out in the plan, I think that the reporting requirement as it is reasonable.
But 6 months is okay.
Sure.
Second question then. So during a previous meeting, you had said that the first investment in order to really be sufficient does need to be $250,000, and that's at least to get the ball rolling. Everything else we can kind of tranche out. Am I remembering that correctly as your recollection?
That was my request, yes.
So Director Dickinson or Director Kubiak, with that said, can we make that happen?
Put it in an amendment. It should be an amendment. I'm ready to sponsor it right now.
Yes, Finance Director Dickinson, when I was reading the draft of the agreement, I think some of this is spelled out in there, so I don't want to speak to the particulars. Whatever is required about payment, timing, that kind of thing, we should be spelling it out in the agreement. not in an amendment. So if you want those particulars, the agreement is not completely executed yet, we could add that. But I seem to recall there were some details in the agreement. And whatever is required, we can do. There's no financial restrictions or any difficulty in us getting that
So
check done.
Director Maddox Evans really got into detail during our previous meeting on how an initial investment of $250,000 was needed in order to get significant investment down with the contractors. And I understand why. Because those initial construction costs, you have to put those down payments down, construction industry being what it is, I get it. And this committee wants to make sure that this investment is effective. And in order to do that, it needs to be done. So
So-
I think I can safely speak for the rest of this committee. When we say can you put that in?
To the agreement.
To the agreement, please. I would rather not get into that with the amendment because, as you said, if you say the appropriate place to do that is an agreement, so I'm asking here, can you do that?
So that is a question that I'm going to direct to Director Jakubiec or to the Assistant City Manager, as far as what we have in there and if they are in agreement that it should be added to the,
If you guys can make that agreement to me
details.
right here and right now, we won't do it by amendment. If you can't, we're going to have to. But I trust my directors. I trust my assistant city manager. Can we do
Alderman?
that?
May I say, in answer to that, what Director Evans has shared with you is completely consistent with what she shared with me and with our previous conversations on our weekly meetings. This is not unusual, and the agreement provides for this. It certainly could be accomplished, and there's no reason why we wouldn't. There's no interest that the city has in delaying this or parceling out the funding in such small tranches as to be administrative burden. So that's essentially where things were headed, in my view. I don't know that an amendment is necessary. I think certainly amending the agreement would cause delay because this would have to cycle through the various parties again.
That's why I'm hesitant to do the amendment, but is that you saying, yes, $250,000 can be the first disbursement? Yes or no?
It's my view that it should be and it would be, but I certainly want to be careful not to appear as a director in the office in any form of negotiating with the individual council members like this. But as I said, the agreement provides for that flexibility, and it's my interest to get the sizable chunk of funding to the executive director and her staff and consultants right away, contractors, excuse me. So that's where we're headed, Alderman.
Vice Deputy City Manager Buckland, are you on the same page as that as well?
Yeah, I have not heard any indications that the city somehow has an interest in being parsimonious in this instance.
Excellent. I am glad we are all on the same page for $250,000 for that first investment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I think we're good on amendments 1. We have did we recommend favorably amendment 2?
We made no recommendation on Amendment 1. We gave Amendment 2 a favorable recommendation. Mr. Chair, I would like to recommend R4424 as amended by the Rules Committee. Give a favorable recommendation.
Mr. Standmeyer, I think we changed it slightly, so it would not be
you're right, I
recommended by
apologize.
the Rules Committee. It would be as we've just amended it.
Yes.
Yes, I apologize. So we recommended Amendment 2 as amended. Yeah. Robert's rules, man.
No, we're recommending All right, there's a motion on the floor to recommend R 4424 as amended by the Housing and Human Welfare Committee to the full body. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you so much to all the staff. This is fantastic, and whenever you get contractors there, I and my colleagues would love an invitation out to see how this looks in person, you know, to see actual, you know, taxpayers' dollars being put to great, great, great use. This is top 3 moments. Tonight will be top 3 moments in my council years getting this money to you. I wish it was more, but thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It'll be our pleasure to invite you.
Fantastic. Thank you as well, Director Jakubiak. Thank you, Director Dickinson, and as well to the Deputy City Manager. Any other items on the agenda? I see another staff member here. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything on the agenda.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Okay. There's a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all so much.
Beautiful.
We're